My mother-in-law moved into my house, imposed new rules and crossed an unforgivable line, so I kicked her out. And what happened next shattered our family forever. Have you ever met someone who decides they hate you before you even say a word? That's Linda, 53, female, my mother-in-law. From the second I walked into her house, I could feel her icy "you're not who I pictured for my son" vibe. Honestly, I should have run right then, but nope, I stayed, tried to play nice, and now I'm here to tell you just how far Linda went to make my life hell and how I made sure she'd never do it again. If you think Linda hated me now, let me tell you, she's been at this game since day one. Her distaste for me started the second Ryan brought me home to meet her. I'm Priya, 28, female, Indian American, born and raised in Chicago. My family has been here for 4 generations, but to Linda, I might as well have been fresh off the boat. She's the type of person who believes her son deserved a pure, wholesome, church-going white girl, and I was none of that. Ryan, 28, male, and I met in college. He was the charming, all-American guy with an easy laugh and kind eyes, and I was the girl who could hold her own in any debate. We clicked instantly, and it didn't take long for us to fall in love. When Ryan decided it was time for me to meet his mom, I was nervous but hopeful. I knew his family came from a small town, but I naively believed they'd see me for who I was, a hard-working, loving woman who adored their son. I was wrong. From the moment I walked through her door, Linda was polite, but it was that frosty, fake polite where every word feels like a test. "Oh, you're Priya," she said, her smile a little too tight. "Ryan told me a bit about you." A bit felt like code for everything I don't like about you. I smiled anyway, trying to make a good impression. Dinner that night was straight out of a rom-com gone wrong. Linda grilled me with questions about my background. "What do your parents do?" "Oh, they own a small business?" "That must be nice. Do you plan to visit back home often?" "Back home?" I told her I was born here, but she acted like I hadn't said anything. Then came the food comments. Linda had made a bland roast with mashed potatoes and boiled green beans. When I politely asked for salt, her face fell like I'd slapped her. "Is it not flavorful enough for you?" she asked, her tone dripping with passive aggression. Ryan jumped in to defend me, saying, "Mom, Priya's just used to different kinds of food. She's not criticizing." But Linda wasn't done. She turned to Ryan and said, "You used to love this meal when Becky made it for you." Who the hell was Becky? As it turned out, Becky was Ryan's high school sweetheart. She was blonde, bubbly, and everything Linda wanted in a daughter-in-law. By the time I met Linda, Becky was married to someone else, but that didn't stop Linda from treating her like she was still part of the family. Linda brought her up constantly. "Becky just sent me the sweetest card for my birthday," she'd say, or I ran into Becky at the grocery store. "She said to tell you hi, Ryan." At first, I brushed it off. It wasn't Becky's fault that Linda was obsessed with her. But then Linda started pushing boundaries. One day, while Ryan and I were engaged, he got a text from Becky. It was innocent enough. She wanted advice about a work project, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Linda had something to do with it. Ryan didn't think much of it, but I knew Linda. She was scheming. A week later, it all came out. Linda casually mentioned over dinner, "Oh, I gave Becky your number, Ryan. She said she needed help, and I figured you wouldn't mind." I was furious. "Linda, you had no right to do that," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Linda blinked at me, feigning innocence. "What's the big deal? Becky's practically family." "She's not family," Ryan said firmly. "And you don't get to make decisions like that without asking me or Priya." Linda huffed and changed the subject, but the damage was done. It wasn't just about Becky, it was about control. Linda couldn't stand that Ryan was choosing me over the life she'd imagined for him. When Ryan proposed, Linda didn't even pretend to be happy. She didn't call to congratulate us, didn't ask about the ring, didn't offer to help with the wedding. Instead, she sulked for weeks and avoided our calls. When she finally did talk to Ryan, she tried to talk him out of marrying me. "You're rushing into this," she said. "Marriage is a big step. Are you sure you've thought it through?" Ryan wasn't having it. "Mom, I love Priya. We're getting married. You can either be part of it or you can sit this one out." Linda reluctantly agreed to come to our engagement party, but of course, she couldn't just behave. She showed up late, dressed in black, yes, black, like she was mourning, and spent the entire evening talking to her cousins about how different the wedding was going to be. At one point, I overheard her telling one of her friends, "I just hope Ryan knows what he's doing." Marrying someone with such a different culture can be complicated. By the time the wedding rolled around, I was ready for anything Linda could throw at me, or so I thought. She made a scene about everything: the guest list, the menu, the music. "Do we really need to have Indian food at the reception? She asked Ryan. Can't we just do something neutral, like steak and potatoes? Ryan shut that down quickly. Mom, this is Priya's wedding too. We're having Indian food, and that's final. On the day of the wedding, Linda tried to outdo me by wearing an elaborate black gown that looked more suited for a Hollywood premiere than a family wedding. She refused to smile in the photos, barely spoke to my parents, and left the reception early without saying goodbye. It hurt, but I refused to let her ruin my day. Ryan and I were married, and that was all that mattered. Fast forward 3 years, and I thought we'd moved past the worst of it. Linda still made her passive-aggressive comments whenever she visited, but Ryan and I had learned to tune her out. We were happy in our little home, building a life together. Then Linda's condo HOA drama happened. Apparently, she'd been feuding with her neighbors for months, something about property lines and fence heights. One day, she called Ryan in tears, saying she needed a place to stay while she sorted things out. Ryan, being the kind-hearted guy he is, offered to let her move in temporarily. Just until she finds a new place, he said. I know it's a lot to ask, but she's my mom, I sighed, already dreading what was to come. Fine, but you need to set boundaries, Ryan. This is our home, not hers. He promised he would, but promises are easy to make. Keeping them? That's a whole different story. When Linda showed up at our doorstep, I knew I was in for trouble. It wasn't the first time she had barged into my life with her opinions and entitlement, but this was different. This time, she wasn't just visiting, she was moving in. Her car was packed to the brim with suitcases, boxes, and random household items, like she was preparing for a year-long vacation. I peeked out the window and groaned. Ryan, please tell me she didn't bring her entire house. Ryan rubbed his temples, already exasperated. I told her it was just temporary. She's probably just overpacking, like she always does. Temporary or not, this felt like the beginning of a nightmare. Linda breezed into the house as if she owned it. She gave me a once-over, her eyes lingering just a second too long on my leggings and oversized sweatshirt. Oh, Priya, you look comfortable, she said, her voice dripping with judgment. Nice to see you too, Linda, I replied, forcing a smile. Ryan helped her bring in her bags, 6 oversized suitcases, 3 boxes labeled fragile, and a laundry basket filled with throw pillows and blankets. She immediately began inspecting the house like she was conducting a real estate appraisal. You've changed the furniture since I was last here, she noted, running her fingers along the back of the couch. It's modern. Not quite my style, but I guess it works for you. It's functional, I said, biting back the urge to roll my eyes. She wandered into the kitchen next, opening cabinets and drawers without asking. Oh, Priya, you still have that spice rack. You really ought to get something more neutral. This one just screams ethnic. Because it's mine, I said through clenched teeth. Ryan shot me an apologetic look, but Linda was oblivious. She was too busy rearranging my kitchen. When Linda finally finished inspecting the house, I showed her to the guest room we'd prepared for her. It was small but cozy, with a full-sized bed, fresh linens, and a little desk by the window. This is it? She asked, wrinkling her nose. Yes, this is the guest room, I replied. She walked in, turning in a slow circle like she was sizing up a prison cell. It's so compact. Are you sure there's nothing bigger? It's the only room available, I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. What about the office? She asked, pointing down the hall. The office is where we work, I said firmly, and it's much smaller than this room, she sighed dramatically, plopping down on the bed. Well, I suppose I'll make do, but I'll need a better mattress. This one is far too firm. It's a brand new mattress, I said, my patience wearing thin. For guests, she shot back, not for someone staying long term. Temporary, Ryan corrected her. You're staying temporarily, Mom. She ignored him. Within hours, it became clear that Linda wasn't going to settle in quietly. She immediately started unpacking, filling the guest room with so much of her stuff that it looked like she was setting up a permanent residence. She hung up her own curtains, replaced the bedding I'd put out with her own more comfortable set, and even brought in a small coffee maker because, apparently, walking to the kitchen was too inconvenient. But it didn't stop there. Linda had a habit of treating every room like it was hers. She'd leave her coffee cup on the living room table, her shoes in the hallway, and her mail on the kitchen counter. It was like she was marking her territory. One evening, I came downstairs to find her rearranging the framed photos on our bookshelf. She had moved a picture of Ryan and me on our wedding day to the back of the shelf and replaced it with a photo of Ryan and Becky at his high school prom. Linda, what are you doing? I asked, barely keeping my voice steady. Oh, I was just tidying up, she said, smiling innocently. This picture of Ryan and Becky is so much nicer, don't you think? No, I don't, I said, grabbing the photo and shoving it back into the drawer where it belonged. Our wedding photos stay where they are, Linda sighed, as if I were the unreasonable one. So sensitive, Priya. It's just a picture. It's my house, I snapped. The kitchen became a battleground almost immediately. Cooking has always been my passion, and Ryan loves my food, but Linda had a problem with everything I made. Priya, are you cooking again? She asked one evening, wrinkling her nose at the smell of cumin and coriander. The whole house smells like spices. It smells like dinner, I said, stirring the pot of curry on the stove. Well, maybe you could open a window next time, she said. You don't want these smells clinging to the walls. Ryan overheard and stepped in. Mom, Priya's cooking is amazing. If you don't like it, you don't have to eat it. Linda crossed her arms, looking offended. I'm just saying, Ryan, I don't know how you can handle all that heat. You've always had such a sensitive stomach. I don't, Ryan said firmly, but Linda wasn't done. She started suggesting easier meals I could make. Read, bland. Why don't you try making something simple, like meatloaf, or maybe a nice casserole? Ryan used to love those when Becky made them. And there it was again, Becky. Linda couldn't stop bringing up Becky, even after all these years. It was like she thought if she mentioned her enough, Ryan would magically change his mind about me. One afternoon, while Ryan was out, Linda came into the kitchen while I was baking. I saw Becky the other day, she said casually, leaning against the counter. Good for her, I said, not looking up from the dough I was kneading. She's doing so well, Linda continued. She just got a promotion at work, and she mentioned that she still thinks about Ryan sometimes. I froze, my hand stopping mid-knead. What's your point, Linda? Oh, nothing, she said, her tone overly sweet. I just think it's nice that she still cares about him. She was such a big part of his life, you know. I dropped the dough onto the counter and turned to face her. Linda, Ryan and I are married. Becky is also married. She isn't part of his life anymore, and she never will be. So if you're trying to stir something up, don't bother. Linda's smile faltered for a second before she recovered. I don't know why you're getting so defensive. I'm just reminiscing. That night, I told Ryan everything. He was furious. She brought up Becky again? He asked, his jaw tightening. Of course she did, I said. She's been trying to undermine me since the moment she got here. I'll talk to her, Ryan promised. This is crossing the line, but talking wasn't enough. Linda was digging her claws in, and I was starting to feel like a stranger in my own home. Linda had only been living with us for a few days, but it already felt like forever. I knew things were going to get worse before they got better, but I had no idea just how far she'd go to sabotage me. By the time Linda decided to destroy my pantry, I was already teetering on the edge of losing my mind. Every day with her was a fresh insult or passive-aggressive jab. She treated my home like it was a poorly managed hotel and me like I was some unqualified housekeeper who'd stumbled into her son's life by accident. Still, I tried to keep the peace for Ryan's sake. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that she'd eventually get bored and leave. But what happened that morning made it crystal clear. Linda wasn't just difficult, she was out to erase me entirely. I woke up feeling unusually optimistic. I had plans to make biryani for dinner, a dish Ryan absolutely loved, and I'd even taken the time to prep the spices and marinate the chicken the night before. Cooking always gave me a sense of control, and with Linda's constant antics, I needed that small victory. But when I walked into the kitchen, my heart dropped. The pantry door was wide open, and all my carefully organized shelves were bare. At first, I thought I was seeing things. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and opened the cabinet again, hoping the spices would magically reappear. They didn't. My rice dispenser? Gone. The jars of lentils, the bags of flour, even the small containers of dried herbs I tucked away for special dishes, everything was missing. Panicking, I checked the fridge. It was the same story. All the paneer, yogurt, and vegetables I'd stocked up on were gone. The only things left were a carton of milk, a stick of butter, some eggs, and a loaf of bread. I stood there, frozen, as the realization hit me, someone had cleared out my kitchen. Ryan wandered into the kitchen a few minutes later, still half asleep. Morning, he said, grabbing a mug for coffee. You okay? You look pale. Where's all the food? I asked, my voice shaking. Ryan frowned, looking into the pantry and fridge. I have no idea. Did you move it? Before I could answer, Linda walked in, carrying her coffee cup like she hadn't just committed a felony against my pantry. She looked at me, then at Ryan, and smiled. Oh, you noticed, she said, like she was expecting gratitude. Noticed what? I snapped. I cleaned out the kitchen, she said, setting her cup down. All that stuff you had, those weird spices and whatever, it just wasn't suitable. Ryan's not used to eating that kind of food. I figured it was time to start fresh. Ryan's jaw dropped. You did what? Linda shrugged. I threw it out. It was taking up so much space, and honestly, the smell was overpowering. Now you have room for normal groceries. Normal groceries? I said, my voice rising. Linda, that was hundreds of dollars worth of food. Do you have any idea how long it took me to stock all of that? Linda didn't even flinch. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Priya. You can buy more. Besides, I've already written up a list of things we actually need: potatoes, canned soup, chicken breasts, real food. Ryan stepped in, his voice sharp. Mom, you had no right to touch any of that. This is Priya's kitchen. What were you thinking? I was thinking about your health, she said, crossing her arms. All those spices, who knows what they're doing to your stomach. I'm just looking out for you. You're not, Ryan shot back. You're disrespecting Priya again. But Linda wasn't listening. She'd already decided she was the victim in this situation, and nothing we said was going to change her mind. After Linda's confession, I stormed out of the house. Ryan offered to come with me to the grocery store, but I told him to stay and deal with his mom. I needed to cool off, and frankly, I didn't trust myself to be civil around her right then. The grocery store wasn't much better for my mood. As I walked down the aisles, I felt my frustration building. There were no bags of basmati rice, no lentils, and none of the spices I needed to replace the ones Linda had tossed. The shelves were fully stocked with canned goods and frozen dinners, but it wasn't the same. What made it worse was knowing how irreplaceable some of those items were. A lot of the ingredients Linda had thrown out weren't just things I could pick up at the local supermarket. The masalas, dried herbs, and specialty snacks, I'd gotten most of those from my parents and friends when they visited from India. My mom always packed a care package for me when she came, filled with homemade spice blends, dried red chilies, and pickles I couldn't find here. Those items weren't just food, they were pieces of home, little reminders of where I came from. Even when I did find certain Indian ingredients locally, it was always a hassle. The nearest Indian grocery store was over an hour away, and their stock wasn't consistent. Sometimes I'd drive all that way only to find they were out of turmeric or asafoetida. And when I couldn't make the trip, I had to rely on online stores, which came with hefty shipping fees and the uncertainty of whether the items would arrive fresh. I thought about the small jar of garam masala my mom had sent me last year. It was her own special blend, made with spices she toasted and ground herself. Linda had probably dumped it in the trash without a second thought, like it was no different from a can of paprika. That jar wasn't just an ingredient, it was a gift from my mom, something she made with love. Knowing I couldn't replicate it here, I could feel my throat tighten as I pushed my cart through the store. How could someone be so thoughtless? Did Linda even realize how much she destroyed, or did she just not care? I grabbed what I could, some pasta, canned tomatoes, and a loaf of bread, but it was a far cry from the vibrant, flavorful meals I was used to making. The absence of my usual ingredients felt like more than just an inconvenience, it felt like a part of me had been erased. When I got home, Linda was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine. She didn't even look up as I walked past her with the groceries. Did you get everything you need? She asked casually, like she hadn't just ruined my entire kitchen. No, I said flatly. Well, I'm sure you'll manage, she said, turning a page. You're resourceful. I slammed the pantry door shut and went upstairs to cool off. That evening, Ryan and I sat down to talk. I was still fuming, and he could tell. She has to go, I said, not bothering to sugarcoat it. Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. Priya, I know what she did was completely out of line. I've already told her it's unacceptable. It's not just about the groceries, I said, my voice shaking. She doesn't respect me, Ryan. She's made that clear from the start, and now she's treating me like a guest in my own home. Ryan nodded. You're right. She's crossed the line too many times. I'll call Lisa tomorrow and see if she can take her in. Lisa, 32, female, his sister, had offered to let Linda stay with her when this whole situation started, but Linda had refused. It's too far from my friends, she'd said at the time. Well, she can't stay here, I said firmly. Not after this. The next morning, Ryan sat Linda down for a serious talk. I stayed upstairs, not wanting to get dragged into the argument. I couldn't hear everything they said, but I caught bits and pieces. You can't just throw out someone else's food, Mom. This isn't your house. You need to respect our space. If you can't, then you'll have to leave. Linda's voice grew louder with every word. I was just trying to help, she shouted. And now you're throwing me out after everything I've done for you? Ryan stayed calm but firm. "We're not throwing you out, Mom. Lisa's already said she'd be happy to have you. It's not up for debate." By the time the conversation ended, Linda was fuming. She slammed her bedroom door and didn't come out for the rest of the day. That night, Ryan and I sat down to eat a simple dinner of pasta and canned soup. It wasn't what I'd planned, but it was enough. "I'm sorry you had to deal with this," Ryan said, reaching for my hand. "I promise this won't happen again." I nodded, grateful for his support, but deep down, I knew Linda wasn't going to go quietly. She never did. The next few days were going to be interesting, to say the least. Linda wasn't just entitled, she was spiteful. What began as an infuriating invasion of my kitchen escalated into something I never thought even she was capable of. The pantry debacle left me drained, but I tried to let it go for Ryan's sake. Then, a few days later, something happened that changed everything. I'd kept a small, beautifully crafted wooden box on the mantel in our living room. It contained the ashes of my older brother, Arjun, who had passed away in a car accident 5 years earlier. Losing him was the hardest thing my family and I had ever endured, and having that small piece of him close brought me comfort. The box was simple but special to me. It had been a gift from my parents, a way to honor Arjun's memory. They knew I couldn't visit his resting place often, so they'd entrusted me with part of his ashes to keep close. One evening, as I was tidying up the living room, I noticed the box was gone. I checked the mantel, thinking maybe it had been moved to the side, but it wasn't there. Panic set in as I searched the shelves, the coffee table, and even the floor. "Ryan!" I called out, my voice shaking. "Where's the box?" "The one on the mantel." Ryan came into the room, frowning. "What box?" "The one with Arjun's ashes," I said, my heart pounding. His face fell. "I don't know. It should be there." That's when Linda walked in, casually sipping her tea. "What's all the fuss about?" she asked, looking completely unfazed. "The box with my brother's ashes is missing," I said, turning to her. "Have you seen it?" Her expression didn't change. "Oh, that old thing? I thought it was some kind of decorative trinket. I moved it when I was dusting. Maybe it's in one of the drawers." I searched every drawer, every shelf, every corner of the room. "Nothing." "Linda," I said, my voice trembling with anger, "where is it? This isn't just a decoration. It's my brother's ashes. If you moved it, tell me where it is." She looked at me with feigned innocence. "I really don't know, Priya. Maybe you misplaced it." "Misplaced it?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Linda, I didn't misplace anything. It was on the mantel, and now it's gone." "Did you throw it out?" Her face hardened for a moment before she plastered on her fake smile. "Why would I do that? You're being so dramatic. I'm sure it'll turn up somewhere." But it didn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. Ryan tried to comfort me, but nothing he said could bring back what was lost. I knew in my gut that Linda had thrown away the box out of spite. It wasn't enough for her to erase my food or my traditions, she wanted to erase me. The next morning, Ryan confronted her. "Mom, did you throw away Priya's brother's ashes?" Linda gasped, clutching her chest like she was offended at the very suggestion. "How could you accuse me of something so horrible? I would never do such a thing." "Then where is it?" Ryan pressed. "I don't know," she snapped. "Maybe Priya's memory isn't as good as she thinks it is." Her refusal to confess was the final straw for both of us. That evening, Ryan and I sat down to talk. He was angrier than I'd ever seen him. "Priya, I know she did it. She'll never admit it, but I know. She needs to leave." "Ryan, I can't live like this," I said firmly. "I can't live with someone who disrespects me, my culture, my family, someone who would destroy something so precious." Ryan nodded. "She's gone. I'll call Lisa tomorrow and tell her to come get Mom. If she refuses to go to Lisa's, we'll find another solution, but she's not staying here another day." Linda didn't take the news well. She accused us of abandoning her, of being ungrateful for everything she'd done for Ryan, and even tried to guilt trip him by bringing up his childhood. But Ryan stood firm. "You've crossed every boundary, Mom," he said. "This isn't about family anymore. It's about respect, and you've shown none. You need to leave." By the end of the week, Linda was gone. Ryan and I spent hours cleaning the house, trying to rid it of the tension and toxicity she'd brought with her. But even though she was physically gone, her actions had left scars. The loss of my brother's ashes weighed heavily on me. Every time I walked past the mantel, I felt an ache in my chest. Ryan tried his best to console me, but there were no words that could undo the damage Linda had caused. Linda moved in with Ryan's sister, Lisa, the same day she left our house. Lisa, bless her heart, had no idea what she was signing up for. She'd heard bits and pieces of what had happened but assumed it was just typical family drama. She didn't yet understand the depths of Linda's entitlement and malice. At first, we heard nothing from Linda, no calls, no texts, no attempts to reach out. Part of me was relieved. I didn't want to hear her excuses or fake apologies. But I also knew Linda. Silence wasn't her style. She was too stubborn to admit fault, but she was also too prideful to stay quiet forever. About 2 weeks after Linda moved in with Lisa, we got a call. It wasn't from Linda, though, it was from Lisa. "Priya, can I talk to you?" Lisa's voice was hesitant, like she didn't quite know how to begin. "Of course," I said, my heart sinking. There was a long pause before Lisa spoke again. "Mom told me something, and I think you need to know." I braced myself. "What is it?" "She admitted to throwing out the box with your brother's ashes," Lisa said hesitantly, her voice quiet, like she was struggling to even say the words. I froze, gripping the phone tighter. "She what?" "She said she did it on purpose," Lisa continued, her tone filled with disgust. "She was upset that you and Ryan were making her leave. She felt like you were disrespecting her by not letting her stay in your home, so she decided to make a statement." My heart pounded, and my hands clenched into fists. "She threw away my brother's ashes as some kind of revenge?" I asked, my voice rising with each word. "Yes," Lisa said, her voice shaking. "She told me it was after the pantry cleanup. She said she knew what the box was, but she wanted to hurt you. She thought it would teach you a lesson for kicking her out." I felt the blood boiling in my veins, my breath coming in shallow bursts. Teach me a lesson by desecrating my brother's ashes? How could she? How could anyone do something so cruel? Lisa's voice cracked. "I don't know, Priya. I don't know what's wrong with her. When she told me, I couldn't even look at her. I told her she was disgusting, and she just brushed it off like it wasn't a big deal. She's a monster," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "Lisa, I appreciate you telling me this, but I want nothing to do with her ever again. She's dead to me," Lisa sighed. "I understand, and for what it's worth, I don't think she deserves forgiveness for this. What she did is unforgivable." I thanked her, hung up the phone, and sat in silence, the weight of Linda's cruelty pressing down on me. This wasn't just a boundary crossed, it was the ultimate betrayal. Linda hadn't just disrespected me, she desecrated my family, my culture, and my grief. There was no coming back from this. Life slowly began to move on. Ryan and I focused on rebuilding our home and our relationship. We were stronger than ever, and cutting Linda out of our lives only brought us closer. Then, a few months later, something incredible happened. I found out I was pregnant. The news filled me with a joy I hadn't felt in years. Ryan was ecstatic, and we spent hours talking about baby names, nursery plans, and what kind of parents we wanted to be. For the first time in a long time, the future felt bright. We decided to keep the pregnancy quiet at first, sharing the news only with my family and a few close friends. I didn't want Linda to find out, not yet, anyway. I knew how she'd react, and I wasn't ready to deal with her inevitable attempt to claw her way back into our lives. Unfortunately, secrets don't stay secret for long. Somehow, Linda found out about the pregnancy. I suspect Lisa let it slip during one of their conversations, though I don't blame her. Linda has a way of prying information out of people. The first sign of trouble was an email. "Dear Priya and Ryan, I just heard the wonderful news. I'm so thrilled to be a grandmother. Please let me know how I can help during this exciting time. I'd love to come over and talk about the baby. Love, Mom." I deleted the email without responding. Ryan read it over my shoulder and shook his head. "She's unbelievable," he muttered. The emails turned into texts, then phone calls. Linda tried every angle: apologies, guilt trips, and even playing the victim. "I've been so lonely since I moved out," she said in one voicemail. "Can't we just move past this for the sake of the baby? I'm still Ryan's mother, after all." But for me, what Linda had done was unforgivable. Throwing away my brother's ashes wasn't just an act of disrespect, it was an act of cruelty, and while I could move forward with my life, I couldn't let her back into it. As my pregnancy progressed, Linda's attempts to reconnect became more desperate. She sent gifts to the house: baby clothes, toys, even a blanket she claimed she'd hand-knitted, though it still had the price tag on it. We returned everything unopened. One evening, Linda showed up at our door unannounced. Ryan answered, and I stayed in the living room, out of sight. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Ryan asked, his voice cold. "I just wanted to see you," Linda said, "and Priya, and the baby, well, the bump, I guess." "You're not welcome here," Ryan said firmly. "You need to leave." "But I'm your mother," Linda said, her voice cracking. "You can't shut me out of my grandchild's life." Ryan didn't waver. "You shut yourself out when you threw away Priya's brother's ashes. That was the last straw. "We're done, Mom," Linda tried to argue, but Ryan stood his ground. Eventually, she left, though not without tears and another round of guilt tripping. When our baby girl, Maya, was born, we didn't tell Linda. She found out eventually, probably through Lisa, but by then, we were clear about our boundaries. Maya would grow up in a home filled with love, respect, and kindness, not toxicity and manipulation. Linda tried to reconnect a few more times over the years, but we never let her back in. Some wounds run too deep, and forgiveness isn't always possible. Instead, we focused on building a life that honored the values we believed in. I made sure Maya grew up knowing about her uncle Arjun, even though she'd never meet him. We kept his memory alive through stories, photos, and a new box on the mantle, this time filled with letters and memories, a tribute to the brother I lost but would never forget. And as I watched Maya grow, surrounded by love and free from Linda's shadow, I knew we'd made the right choice. Some ties aren't worth mending, and some endings are the best beginnings.